Hey, it's Brian Buntz, Pharma editor at Drug Discovery and Development and Pharmaceutical Processing World. I'd like to welcome you to our next episode of Pharma50Talks for this year's Pharma50. I recently got a chance to sit down with Tom Cavanaugh, Janssen's company group chairman, global commercial strategy organization, to talk about the company's growth strategy. Tom walks us through some of the drugs that helped fuel Janssen's international sales growth, the history of the company's pathway approach to biologics, how the company is prioritizing the increase in funding, what sets Janssen apart in the pharma space, and much more. I hope you enjoy our discussion. So in 2021, Janssen achieved international sales growth of 14.3% and 13.1% operationally. I was wondering if you could touch on some of the drugs that helped fuel that growth.
Yeah, maybe Brian, before I get into that, I'd maybe just tell you why I'm excited about Janssen and our future opportunity. At Janssen, we are focused on delivering transformational medical innovation that has the power to change the trajectory of health for humanity. And central to this is our robust investment in R&D to be able to expand the body of evidence and indications for our current portfolio, but also usher in that new wave of pharmaceutical innovation. You might have seen, we just recently released our transparency report. We've invested nearly $12 billion in R&D in 2021. That's a 24% increase versus the previous year, and over $54 billion since 2016. We disproportionately invest nearly over 100% in R&D versus sales and marketing. So what makes us exciting? That money that can then be distributed across 6 therapeutic areas that are focused on delivering therapies to patients with the greatest unmet medical need, whether it be specialty or primary care, acute to chronic, or common and rare diseases. And we're planning to deliver approximately 50 transformational medical innovations, both expansion of existing products, which I'll touch on, and 14 novel therapies through 2025. So this marks an industry-leading commitment. And by doing so, we expect to have ourselves a $60 billion pharmaceutical company by 2025. You asked a question specific to growth, and you highlighted our numbers from 2021. We are excited and pleased with our growth. We highlighted in our quarterly earnings report just recently. There's a couple key products I'll maybe point out. I think the first one I'll start with is Darzalex. This is an amazing drug and an amazing story. It first begun as we identified through a partnership with Genmab, the target CD38 in multiple myeloma, quickly developed the proof of concept, and then accelerated our development into parallel paths of indications. It is the first and most extensively studied biologic, a CD38 antibody, in multiple myeloma with 8 FDA-approved regimens, 3 in newly diagnosed, and 1 in AL amyloidosis. It remains to be the differentiated only CD38 with an overall survival benefit and a subcutaneous formulation. As we just recently highlighted in our quarterly earnings, growth of Darzalex is over 40% year over year, and the brand is the largest share growth in the first-line multiple myeloma. But we're not stopping there with Darzalex. We have continued investment to really with the aim for cure as we look at quadruplet therapy in both the transplant and the non-transplant patient population. So it has the potential to truly transform frontline treatment in multiple myeloma. Now, I know you wanted to have some questions around the immune pathways. Another asset I would like to touch on from our performance is Tremfya. Tremfya provides, first and foremost, for patients with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis or active PsA, psoriatic arthritis, with an opportunity for complete skin clearance, robust IL-23 joint efficacy, and long-term safety and durability. We now have up to 5 years safety follow-up in PSO or psoriasis, and up to 2 years in psoriatic arthritis. It's the first selective IL-23 with a robust competitive profile that delivers superior efficacy against 3 major other classes of biologics, as you are aware of, TNF-alpha, our own IL-12/23, IL-17s. So again, exceptional performance in our first quarter, delivering net trade sales growth of over 46% versus the previous year, and impressive share gains as well. And we do believe Tremfya is a great example of a pipeline and a pathway as we continue to pursue the life cycle development opportunities with 4 ongoing clinical trials in PsA, as well as Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, lupus nephritis, and giant cell arteritis.
Building on that point, I've heard a lot about the pathway approach for several biologics at Janssen. And maybe you could touch on kind of like the history of that kind of strategy and kind of like how the approach is ramping up.
Yes, I think, it starts with a pathway approach is systematic and evidence-driven. It starts with deep insights into unmet medical needs, aligns these market insights with our deep understanding of the immune pathway science to focus on the highest impact assets and programs. I mean, it can stem all the way back as we thought about TNF alpha and Remicade, to Symphonies, to our 1223 pathway with Stelara, and now to Tremfya that I just highlighted. Our approach from a historical perspective is that deep insights that we have gained throughout the development of these assets and just close to the community in which we are serving. We are leading the industry in 4 significant pivots to redefine immunology treatment paradigms. Our first pivot is to move from that immune suppression to immune homeostasis, so rebalancing. The second pivot is from roughly 6 anatomy-based diseases to more than 20 addressable diseases in focus. And what's really exciting is this third pivot from a single treatment paradigm, namely the injectable monotherapies, to utilizing a full range of modalities, including novel tissue-directed and systemic orals and industry-first combination therapies. And then the fourth, there is a significant unmet medical need in immune-mediated diseases. Nearly 90% of the patients are in need of something better. And we're going from a goal of signs and symptoms response to a goal of disease remission for all patients. This is important because of the high unmet medical need. While many of the current advanced therapies produce robust response in meaningful portion of patients, the vast majority, nearly 90%, are not well. An example, is Stelara, an effective IL-12/23 treatment, first studied in plaque psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis, and then in inflammatory bowel diseases, Crohn's disease, and ulcerative colitis. Again, has proven a strong validation of the concept of treating multiple diseases by addressing one immune pathway.
Just briefly on the history of that approach, has that approach been in the works for a number of years now, the kind of pathway approach?
It's evolved. It's evolved as we had a deeper understanding of the science and truly just multiple discussions with many of the experts and really understanding the biology. And now that we've done experiments and have proven, proof of concepts, most recently, we have demonstrated the combination therapy to show greater remission rates in patients treated with ulcerative colitis.
Great, thank you. So you touched on Janssen's R&D investment, how it's increased significantly in the past year. It continues to increase. Maybe you could briefly touch on how Janssen is prioritizing the increase in funding.
First and foremost, we follow the science. We do really look, and we have a process by which we identify patients with these deep insights across all of our therapeutic areas to really look for patients with the substantial unmet medical need, and then where we have the science, the know-how, and potentially the assets. And if we don't have the assets, we have a broad network across the industry of whether it be small biotechs, business development opportunities, licensing. We utilize our J labs, our innovation centers to really identify the technology because we are source agnostic. But once we identify all this, we develop a robust development program and quickly accelerate the development and look for fail first as well. If we don't see something, we tend to cut and move on and reallocate our resources. So this is from a therapeutic area disease approach so that we can gather those insights and really have that deep level of expertise to drive the next wave of innovation.
So I saw that Fortune named Janssen as the most admired company in its pharmaceutical category. And I was wondering, you probably touched on some of the items that you think set it apart, but maybe you could talk about what you think makes a company an admired company in the pharma space.
Yeah, I will tell you, we are a company that is grounded by our credo and purpose-driven. And, just recently joined in the last 5 years, I can tell you I felt that from day one. Not only are we focused on the science, we're focused on our people and our talent, and people truly feel a sense of belonging in the organization. That motivation really drives everybody to perform at their best. And, I did touch on some of the science side of things. I would say externally as well, we know you can't just do it with transformative medicines. We are committed to strategies that break down the barriers to access and support patients in their journey from fulfillment to persistency. And we're developing partnerships externally. And that is quite rewarding for our own internal employees, really to drive better patient outcomes and ensure value to the healthcare system. So there is this collective view and way in which we approach the marketplace, but it is really centered around our credo.
Mm-hmm. I imagine you work with quite an array of different types of employees and different patients externally. And one question I was wondering is, what leadership skill do you think helps you keep your focus and stay grounded as you move from employees internally to external patients, and then in the midst of a pandemic, nonetheless.
Yeah, there's a lot. This interview can go for a long time. But I would say, a few things. First and foremost, humility. I do believe it is important. We don't know everything, and we're very centered around asking questions, being inquisitive, really to uncover what is that next best thing. And humility in a way in which we approach our employees to ensure, ask the questions of how they're doing, quite honestly, and what are they focused on? How can we help them? So I do believe humility will be a major factor, and it has shown our ability to be resilient through these times and still continue to drive that performance, many of which we've highlighted on our quarterly call.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess we can wrap up there. So it was cool meeting you and great hearing about like your thoughts on the company and the direction and like the pathway approach and everything we went through today. So I appreciate your time and great meeting you.
Thank you, Brian. Good to meet you, and be safe out there in San Fran.
I'd like to thank Tom Cavanaugh for a great discussion. Check out the next episode as I get a chance to speak with Yen Shang, CEO of Mission Bio, who will detail the company's position in the cell and gene therapy and pharma oncology spaces. Also, please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to Drug Discovery and Development on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. We'll have more for you as we continue on with this year's Pharma50. Until next time.